Welcome back to Going Pro. In today's episode, we're going to talk about the idea that pros know their numbers. In fact, they don't only know them, they love them. They see them as one of the places and primary places to get information about what's going on inside their business. Now I want to share with you a few ideas about why this is important and maybe some of the hurdles we have to engaging our numbers. We do a lot of thinking and planning and ideating and dreaming about our businesses. Those often happen in the form of narratives. We tell stories about the business as it is and as we want it to be. Narratives are great and they're fantastic. They're an important part of marketing the business and even understanding who we are and what the business is all about. And we put those together with words. The problem is it's very easy to build stories about the business using words that are disconnected from reality or not sufficiently connected to reality. And so we use numbers to kind of fact check. It's our check and balance system for, is the narrative we're using, is it helpful? Is it true? And we use numbers to do that. Sometimes people will say, well, you can make numbers say anything. And that's as insightful as saying you can make letters say anything. Of course you can. It's what they're for. But there's a grammar and there's a way we put letters together to tell stories that communicate meaning. Numbers are the same way. There's a grammar to numbers. There's a way that we put them together that help tell the story of the business. And when someone's doing business planning or they're building out a new idea and they build a narrative, we want to actually see the numbers alongside that. Because when you put the two together, we want to see if they match. Numbers have a way of revealing things to us. It's kind of like believing something about I'm healthy, and then I step on the scale and maybe I'm like, ooh, don't really like that number. Maybe I need to adjust my story about my health and do some work. Or it's kind of like going in to get a physical. And very often the doctor will draw a little vial of blood and they will run a bunch of tests on it and they'll come back with a set of numbers. And you can feel healthy. You can even tell yourself a story that you are healthy. But when those numbers come back, you might learn, ooh, high cholesterol or emerging high blood sugars. Those are going to be problems. We have to adjust our narrative sometimes when we see the numbers. It's a way of fact-checking the stories we tell in our head with the stories that the numbers are telling. And what you really want is those stories to match. This is one of the reasons knowing your numbers is so important. Here's another reason. We often talk in business about dashboards, wanting to build dashboards where we can quickly see what's going on inside the business. And that, of course, is a metaphor for driving. And when we're driving, we actually want to be able to look down and see a dashboard that has a bunch of a dozen maybe really important pieces of information that give us an indicator of what's going on inside the systems of the car. Sometimes, like the voltmeter talks about the electrical system and lets us know if it's working sufficiently to keep the battery charged so that when we go to start the car next time, it'll start. It's a really important gauge that helps us understand something about what's going on inside the car, but it doesn't tell us what's wrong. It doesn't diagnose for us. It just tells us it's over there. It's in this system that we need to go look. And that's how these dashboards work. When we don't love our numbers and we're not paying attention to our numbers, it's like driving without a dashboard. You're driving blind. You don't know what's going on inside the car. And it may work. It may be fine. But what if something does go wrong? Wouldn't it be nice to know that long before you have a problem, long before you damage the engine, maybe even permanently? This is what dashboards are for. Remember, those numbers don't tell you what's wrong. You still have to be a great leader that gets inside of the team or the system and understand what's happening, but it points you in the right direction. Numbers are super important to help you diagnose what's happening inside the systems of your business. Why wouldn't you want those? Knowing your numbers is more than knowing how to do your accounting. I'm not actually suggesting that everybody needs to become a bookkeeper. That's a skill that you can actually outsource or hire onto your team. What I'm suggesting is that to be a great leader, you need to know how to read the work that other people are doing. You need to know how to read financial statements. You need to know how to read and manage budgets. You need to know how money is flowing through your business. And what you need to know is how to make decisions based on that. For instance, if you've got a team of people that are providing services, it can be very important to understand what your total payroll is as a percent of revenue to understand productivity. Is my team being productive? Are they operating efficiently? Now, let's say the answer is no, and you're able to determine that. That doesn't mean you have a bad team. It could mean that you have a bad system, or the workflow is broken in some way, and you could remove 3 or 4 steps, and in doing that, the same team could service a bigger volume of revenue. These are really important things to figure out. It could be that you have a couple people on the team that just actually are in the wrong positions. There are places where they could be extremely productive, but in the role they're in, they aren't. They don't have the right skill set, they don't have the right mindset, they don't have the right competencies. There could be a ton of reasons, but they're in the wrong position. And you've got to make adjustments and move them in order to get a team that can operate effectively. These are important metrics that we use to understand, is the business healthy? We like to look at how much money's been deployed in terms of assets or cash, and what kind of return are we getting. Are we using our money productively? We want to understand how cash is moving through the business. We often call this cash flows. But how much cash do we need to operate the business? And there are people who are constantly running out of cash, and it's always a big surprise to them. But it always happens the same time of year. That is something that we can go in and look at the numbers and understand why it's happening and fix it. We can make sure that there's cash available. There are all kinds of things that you can learn about your business that'll make it more productive, more effective, and serve your customers better by understanding your numbers. And pros do that work. Again, I'm not saying you have to become a bookkeeper or an accountant or a CFO or anything like that. There are people who are just absolutely brilliant at that kind of work. But as a great leader and as a business owner, you have to value that work, make room for it inside of your company, and then learn how to use that information. Here's one way of thinking about it. I think there are 3 major pillars or mindsets related to business, and you need all 3 to be highly functional and activated inside of your company to make the thing work. Most of us have one that is our preference, and then maybe we can pick up the other one. I rarely run into someone who can functionally do all 3, but they are these. Number 1 is sales. Somebody has to love sales and marketing, and that's a mindset. There are people who are just fabulous at selling and marketing. Somebody has to love the product or the service or the operations of the business. That's the product mindset. Somebody has to be able to design a product worth selling. Those 2 things are necessary in a business. The third mindset is somebody has to understand the financial framework of the business, how the money works inside of the business. And they have to have a mind that absolutely loves that. If you can get those 3 things working together well, you can build a business. Now, most of us have one, and as early stage entrepreneurs or leaders, we tend to lean on that one. I'm a product guy. I really like product. I like thinking about product. I like thinking about the design of product and how to deliver product. I can sell. I've learned that over time, but my home is product. I have lots of people I work with are salespeople. They just, we say they could sell ice to an Eskimo. They could sell anything. Their mindset is around sales. And honestly, in most, especially early stage entrepreneurship, it's built by one of those 2 minds. And the finance comes later. People go a long way in their business development before they get kind of forced into this finance piece, before they take this part seriously. And I've often wondered why. Why is that? Well, I don't know, but I have a hypothesis. And I think there's something about a mindset that we carry that says a real business person knows accounting, it knows how to work spreadsheets, things like that. And because I don't know that, I'm not a real business person. I like design and creativity, and I like relationships and people, but real business people are all about the numbers. And because I don't know that, I'm afraid I'm an imposter. And so I kind of shy away from it. I just don't want to be found out. It's one idea. Another one is this. I think people mistakenly misunderstand the value of constraints and restraint. And so when they go look at their budgets and they look at their numbers, what you're looking at is the parameters or the constraints that you're operating in. And they want, quote, freedom. They want to feel free, and constraints just limit our freedom. But that's actually backwards. Constraints are a necessary part of creativity. Understanding that looking at the restraints is a necessary part of creativity and freedom will help us engage the numbers in a more powerful way. It's actually one of the sources of freedom, is to be able to see the world as it actually is, and it actually is full of limits and restraints. And if you can create and operate and be innovative within those restraints, you've got something worth selling. I think that the last reason that people tend to avoid this is it is revealing. And sometimes we just rather not know. We'd rather believe the story in our head, or we'd rather believe that everything's going to be okay. We'd rather believe that we're doing a good job than know the places where we might not be. And it's just an amateur move. We've all made that move. We've all fallen and prey to this problem. But what pros do is they go look at reality as it is. They go see where the problems are. And I think they get excited about solving those problems. But to do that, you have to know how to read your numbers. It's a necessary part of business. The sooner you do it, the better, because you'll know what's going on inside your business and you can do something about it. Pros know their numbers, they love their numbers, and they know they provide them vital information about how to build a successful business.